Hello, I'm David, this is Accelerators, and this is Creative Differences, much review about nothing. Hello, welcome back. Today, we're doing Accelerators, number 1. There we go. The time games. Now, I'll be honest with you. I found this book sort of by accident. What happened was, I was crowdfunding for these. Where's the light? Billy the Kit number 1 through to number 5. And what happened was, obviously it was successful, so I got these, and this came in the box with it, and I thought maybe there'd been a mistake, but I checked my reward tier, and it did include this. So I thought, okay, so I'll put them on the table ready to read later in the day, and when I sat down to read these, because I was going to review these first, seeing as these are the things that I was actually crowdfunding. But the way these were advertised was basically Western meets horror meets cutesy animals. So I thought, can't go wrong with that. Brilliant. So I went to read them. I thought I'd just have a look at this, just see what this is about first. And I read the back. And the thing is, I love time travel, and the first line of this synopsis did it for me. The world is over. Time travel ruined it. So I read that and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to read this. It was quite late, so I thought I'll read a couple of chapters, a couple of comics. Obviously, it's a trade paperback, so it's made up of comics. And I'll maybe read 2 comics and then I'll go to bed, finish the rest tomorrow. I read the whole lot in one sitting, in a couple of hours or so, and I decided, you know what, this is the thing I need to review. I have read these as well now, but we'll talk about them another time. I want to review this. This Accelerators, The Accelerators, is published by an independent publishing house called Blue Juice Comics. It's written by Ronnie Porto. Gavin Smith does the art, and Tim Yates does the colours. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. It really is. Obviously, I have it as a paperback trade. It is available digitally as well, and it's been out for a while, so I believe there are 4 in the series. I've only read the first one at this point, so obviously I need to get onto that. Okay, so here's the public synopsis. The world is over. Time travel ruined it. Pulled into the future by a mysterious device, a ragtag group of time travellers find themselves trapped in the time games.
The time games.
A gladiator arena that steals people from different points in history and forces them to fight for the pleasure of the crowd. Our reluctant heroes must survive the games and escape from this nightmarish apocalypse. But with no way back, the future may be their only hope.
Ooh.
So, yes, once again, as is becoming a theme for these reviews, not for kids. This is not a story for kids. It does involve lots of blood and gore. At one point, a character gets stabbed under the chin and blood spurts out. So Not for children. The main thrust of this story is that a time machine has been invented, but it can only go forward in time. The time traveller cannot go back in time. Also, the time machine, or the trans-temporal toroidal field generator. I'll say that again, because what? The trans-temporal toroidal field generator is a handheld device the size and shape of a donut, and it is referred to by Spats, who is one of our main protagonists, as a time donut. The story starts with Lex, who is a physicist from the 1960s, and she is being chased through time by Captain Bertram of the US Army, also from the 60s. She arrives in America in 1991, and still being pursued by Captain Bertram, she leaps again, but this time she accidentally takes with her a hitchhiker, or a stowaway, in the form of Spats, who is an American teenager. Now they then arrive in 2012, Lex, Spats and Captain Bertram. Obviously Lex and Spats are together, Captain Bertram is in pursuit. They arrive in 2012, where Captain Bertram catches up to them and he shoots Lex's time donut, causing it to explode, and Lex gets caught up in the I don't what the wake of the time donut exploding. I suppose it would be the wake, or the wake, and she completely dematerializes. Then Spats and Captain Bertram, who are now travelling together, accidentally leap forward again into 2046, and before they can do anything, they get captured and have their time donut confiscated. Now 2046 is a very different world to anything that we've seen so far. The main form of entertainment takes place in this huge gladiatorial type arena, like a coliseum, and the owner of this coliseum, a lady called Bob, she has at her disposal her minions, or her staff, I suppose, and they use a time machine to pluck people from various times in history and pit them against each other. So these aren't like Robin Hood and things like mythical figures. These are actual, just normal people from throughout history. So it's not like there's anyone Genghis Khan or anything like that. It's not Bill and Ted. So you have a gangster, for example, versus a medieval knight, a Nazi stormtrooper versus a caveman, a Roman soldier against a cowboy, etc., etc. It's proper, like a gladiatorial styly combat thing with people from different periods in history using the technology that they are familiar with as well. So it's not sort of, when I say it's a gangster versus a medieval knight, they're not hand to hand. It's literally the gangster's got his Tommy gun and the medieval knight has his sword and his shield, or whatever he happened to have with him when he was plucked from his time. Now our two protagonists, Spats and Captain Bertram, are then split up to follow their own storylines. Captain Bertram is given the nickname of the Major, and he is inserted into the time games as a combatant. And Spats is given preferential treatment. We're not sure why, but it is at the whim of the only time traveller ever to have successfully travelled backwards in time. By the end of the book, both Spats and Captain Bertram have made lots of new friends, and as a result of the Colosseum's huge time donut, I didn't mention this. The donut, the time donut that is used to pluck people from different periods in history for the time games is massive. Should have said that earlier, but anywho, I said it now. And this huge time donut is about to explode, and it's going to take the Colosseum with it. So Spats, Bertram, and their ragtag group of new friends that they've made throughout the story are all mysteriously whisked away to safety, or relative safety, before they use a normal time donut to all as a group leap forward into the future. Now, this Accelerators is a very easy book to read. It doesn't get bogged down in the science of it all, but you don't sit there wondering how things work either. You're there for the ride. And while I was reading it, I never once thought that doesn't make sense. It's a good book. So well done to Mr. Porto. Good job. One thing that I would like to add is Ronnie Porto, the writer of the book. One of the things that I really liked about this was he is not afraid to use silence. A lot of writers, you read trade paperbacks or comics in general, there are many writers, not all of them by any means, but there are many writers who feel that they have to have words in every panel. Whereas with this, that need, that desire, that habit isn't present. He is not afraid to just let the picture tell the story, and that shows so much confidence in your artists as well as in your story and in your reader. Now, the artwork in this is just brilliant. It's sort of midway between traditional comic and hyperrealism. It's sort of like a midway point. It's slightly further down the scale of comic rather than hyperrealism, but it's not like your traditional, full-on comic type art. I mean, you can see it from the pictures. The expressions on the characters' faces and how the characters hold themselves are really, really nicely done. Yeah, really, really well done. There are loads and loads of examples within this book of glowing art where light is being emitted from a holographic display or a computer display, a laser beam, all that sort of stuff. Now, these effects work brilliantly in contrast with the degradation and the deterioration of the world as a whole, which I think create a really strong, really powerful sense of the fall in society. Now, this book also involves several flashback scenes, and what they've done for the flashback scenes, what the art team have done, is they've made the flashback artwork slightly flatter than the current story art, which I really appreciate, because it's nice to have that. As subtle as it is, it's different enough for you to know, okay, this is not now, sort of thing, so you don't get confused. And one of the things they do to create that effect is they have the colour of the gutters, like the paper surrounding the panels, a different colour to the rest of the book. The rest of the book, the pages, if you like, are black, whereas for these flashbacks, it's like a grey beige colour. It just gives it that separation. Also, obviously, you've got this big lightning strike going across the page to separate them. That helps as well. The panel structure in this is it's lovely, but it is not uniform. It changes from page to page. Sometimes you'll read the left page, going across and then across and across, and then on the next page you go across and across and across. Other times you might go across the 2 pages and go like that. Sometimes, such as this page here, you've got a sort of you've got 5 panels going vertically down the left page. Then you have like a splash page or a semi-splash page, and then you've got 2 panels down the bottom. So they do sort of play with their panels. On this one, when they first arrive in the time games, you've got a sort of splash page, a single splash page with 4 smaller panels on it. They're not afraid to mix things up and it makes things more interesting. You don't fall into a sense of rhythm and pattern, really. It keeps you energized. Now, improvements. Hey, I did really enjoy this book, and I would recommend it. I do have a slight issue with it, and it's not that there's anything particularly bad about it. It's more the execution of the idea. See, I feel that the idea of the time games has a massive amount of untapped potential, and I think that they could have continued this idea. I haven't read the other books, as I say, so maybe the idea of the time games does continue on, in which case this bit is null and void. But I do feel that it seems the way the story ends, no spoilers, but it seems like, well, a minor spoiler, it seems like the time games is only in this one book, and volume 2 is something else. I feel that they could have continued the idea of the time games for at least another book, maybe an entire series just at the time games. Maybe Bob, who's currently in charge of the time games when our protagonists arrive, maybe she lost her job or something, and someone else was put in charge of the time games, and they decided to use the time games as a way of righting wrongs, and criminals were entered into the time games, criminals throughout history, rather than just a samurai versus a milkman. Maybe they could have had all the biggest criminals from history all sort of competing in the time games. And the other thing is that they could have played on the idea of the dilemma of being able to avert disasters and wars from taking place by removing those responsible for these disasters and wars and things, and forcing them to compete in the time games. Bring humanity's worst war criminals to the future and have them compete in the time games. But then the dilemma comes where, if they're plucked from time before they've committed the atrocity that they're responsible for, so the atrocity never happened, would it still be right to punish them? And you could have a whole sort of debate, a huge, I know it's sort of bordering on socio-political stuff there and psychology, but I think it would be interesting. There's a lot they could have done. I mean, imagine if Stargate, we only had the one film and that was it. We never had SG-1. Now, for me, I love the Stargate film, but SG-1 is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, imagine if that was just like one TV film or whatever, and we didn't get the whole gamut of what they gave to us. they could have done something similar with Accelerators. Maybe they'll turn it into a TV show and they will do something like that. In which case, I'd like an audition, please. But I think I think this should definitely be, in the very least, revisited in comic book form, and they should explore, explore different aspects of it. So, in summary, I really enjoyed it, but I just feel that, it's a shame they didn't do more. They didn't sort of, investigate more aspects of it. One thing that I will point out is it uses the same twist twice. No spoilers, I won't say what these twists are, but it uses the same twist twice. It actually works better the second time, and there is another twist which I saw coming a mile off, and I think if you've been paying attention to this, you might even have worked it out yourself. I haven't said what it is, but I have mentioned those involved. That is all I shall say. I'm not saying anything else. So who do I think would enjoy reading this? Sci-fi fans, time travel fans. There are 0 mentions of tights and capes and masks and stuffs. So if you're done with superheroes for a while, or you just don't like superheroes, you might enjoy this as well. The artwork is brilliant. Now, how many happy Daves? Well, I think Porto, Smith and Yates have done a fantastic job. They've not only created a fantastic story, but they've created a world that I can believe in, and characters that I can believe in. So in that regard, I want to give it a high mark. But I can't help feel that there is so much more that could be explored in the time games. That is, what they've done is brilliant. I really enjoy it. But there could have been a Time Games Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, the Time Games saga. So I do feel a little bit disappointed with that, which is obviously going to lower the score somewhat. Still, I'm going to give it 7 happy days. Now, some time ago, my brother and I, we have a podcast together, and we discussed on that podcast something similar to this. We have a feature on there that we call Twisted Vista, where we present each other with an invented scenario, and the other person has to talk about what they would do. And for this particular Twisted Vista, I put to him that where, similar to this story, but where this story says you can only travel forward in time, I put to him that you have a time machine, but you can only travel backwards in time. So I'm curious to hear from you. If you had a time machine that could only travel backwards in time, where would you go? And remember, because it can't go forwards, you can't return to the present. So once you leave 2021, or whenever you're watching this, you can't come back. You could go back to yesterday, in which case, all right, I would go back to yesterday and I would buy that jacket that I was looking at. Fine, if that's what you would do. But, those of you who would travel further back, where would you go? Would you go back to the Victorian times? Would you go back to the Wild West? Would you go back further? Would you go back to prehistory? Where would you go and why? Leave it in the comments below. If you've read this book, Accelerators Volume 1, what did you think? I do like it. I just wish that they'd done more with the time games. Right, so there you go. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this, leave me a like, subscribe, ring-a-ling my ding-a-ling for future notifications and stuffs. And do please share the link. Tell more people about it. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. See ya!